Good morning, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Storytime with Nick. Today's story is entitled 9 Days of Darkness. So, Hurricane Sandy had taken out our power for 9 days. We had to live off candles for light, and boiling water for heat, and boiling water for baths. I'm going to touch on all this stuff today. Just how we survived Hurricane Sandy. How we got through it all, because what do you do when you have no power? So, we had plenty of food, at least for that, and we had a gas stove, so we were able to cook. We weren't able to microwave, but that wasn't a problem, because microwave food wasn't really the best. We just had to cook everything normally. So, for one, we were able to eat, and we were super thankful that we didn't have an electric stove, because that would have just been we would have been done for if we had an electric stove, because we would have been able to eat, we wouldn't have been able to shower or bathe or anything. The house would have been ice cold, and that would have been the end of it. So, we were able to eat, and as night fell, every day we would boil pots of water for heat. And then, once the house was warm enough, we would take those pots, throw it into the bathtub, and we would wash ourselves off. Now, that water cooled off quick. So, because we had to make... Now, that water cooled off quick. The reason being those tubs were porcelain. So, I had to bathe really quickly, and then we would boil some more water, and my mom would bathe. And that was how we did it, basically every day for those 9 days. We had cold water. That was all we had, because the hot water heater was gas, but with no way to open the gas valves, we're not going to get hot water. So, whoop-de-doo. So, downstairs, I remember one day, my mother was boiling water to keep my grandfather's place warm. And what she had done was, by accident, she had left the water boiling for so long while she was down there that it had actually set off the smoke alarms throughout the entire building. And I was freaking out because I wasn't with them at the time, so I wasn't expecting it. I was like, what's going on? What's going on? And I start running downstairs, and my mother sees me, and she's like, calm down, we were just boiling water. And I'm like, okay. So I come inside and see just how much water they were boiling. They had 4 extra large pots just boiling water incessantly. And looking back, it had actually damaged some of the paint that was by that stove there, to where it actually started peeling off. We had noticed that about a couple months later, that, wow, this paint is actually peeling off. It must be from all that water we boiled. So we used boiled water to bathe, and to dry ourselves off, well, apart from using towels, we would actually sit in the car and turn on the heat to dry ourselves. We would literally point the little air ducts at our hair and just dry ourselves off. We would sit there for about 25 minutes and just let the heat do its thing. That was one of the perks of having a fully gassed up car, and I'm kind of thankful that my mother got gas when she did. But when it comes to gas, one person we weren't so thankful for was our neighbors. My aunt and my uncle and their 2 annoying little fucktard children. So, they had a generator, and it ran day and night, night and day. And, okay, I get it that you want to keep your place lit, but even in the night, when we can hear that thing more than usual, and plus that was a very loud generator as far as generators go. Generators by default are loud, but this one was loud for a generator. So it was like, okay, enough. For fuck's sake, can you at least turn the thing off at night? We'll give you some of our fucking candles. But no, they have to live that stupid rich, spoiled person fucking lifestyle. Give me a fucking break. But as far as the night goes, when it came to that, we would leave some candles on for a little while, until we were done with everything we needed to, like brushing our teeth, washing our face, this and that, this and that. And if either of us needed to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, what we had was flashlights. And I remember one time, this was really funny. I remember one time the house across the street from us was actually going up to use the bathroom the same time we were. And we saw their flashlight and they saw ours. And the next day, when they saw us out on the street going out in the morning, they were like, hey, did you guys need anything at night? And we were like, no, we were just going to use the bathroom. We were like, and they were like, oh, wow, same. So what perfect timing there. So it was kind of funny how that played out. What else? To keep ourselves occupied, at least in my part, I forgot what my mother was doing. I was actually getting hooked on puzzles. And I'm not talking about these like 10-piece puzzles for little kids. I'm talking about big fucking puzzles. I'm talking about as big as a table almost. And it was an ongoing thing all through Sandy. And I'd actually had a lot of fun doing it. And I remember on the day that I had to go back to school, once everything was over, I didn't have to go to school during the storm, during those 9 days, because the school had lost power too. Now, they were like the most urgent to get back, but they didn't get power till about we got power. So, I remember, on the day I had to go back, I was like, let me just finish up this last puzzle I've been working on for the last day. And I was able to do it, and I went back to school, and that was when life started getting back to normal. But that's besides the point. Life is not normal yet. We're still without power. So, I think in that time, I must have done at least 6 or 7 puzzles. My mom had gotten into the swing of it too. Not as much as me, because she had done puzzles forever, and she had gotten bored of them. She had done like 2 or 3 smaller ones. But that was sort of how we went about it. My grandfather, he was perfectly okay with just doing his word searches. He had been a lifelong word search addict for maybe the last 50 or 60 years, and he was in his 70s at this point. So it was a good way for him to pass the time, so nothing new was with him. So, at this point, we're approaching the end of everything, and we realize something, that the block next to us has power. The block this way next to us also has power. And then the next day we notice the block behind us has power. And then the block in front of us got power, where our neighbors were that saw us with the flashlights. So at this point, everybody has power. And then there's our block. Nothing. And it wasn't until the 9th day that we had to use the candles. And on the morning of the 10th day, at like 2 in the morning, is when the power came back. Because everything just came on at once. Like all the lights, to some other shit, I forget what, but the lights were like the biggest thing to come on. And it actually woken up my mother because she wasn't used to having so many lights on at once. And so she had went to check it out. And a couple minutes later, she woke up me and she was like, look, the lights are back, the lights are back, the lights are back. And I was like, oh my god, the lights are back. At this point, it was like 2 in the morning and I had no idea what was going on. So I was a little dazed and confused. And I wasn't up to celebrating like you'd think I would be. Like, oh, the lights are back. No, I was fucking tired. I just wanted to sleep. So, on the 10th day is when we got our lights back. And on the 11th day is when I had to go back to school. Because all the schools had gotten power at the same time as us. Because they weren't about to just leave one school closed, but open up the rest. That's gonna give somebody an unfair advantage. Sorry if I'm yawning a lot. I'm really hungry and I'm just waiting for some food right now. That's why I'm recording these. I think it should be here in about another half hour from the time that I'm recording this, so good. And I don't know if you can hear that, but the maintenance lady is outside vacuuming. But so, the power had finally come back on the morning of the 10th day. And on the 11th day, I finally got to relax for a little bit. And then, towards the evening, we get a phone call from the school district. We're so happy to say that all power to all of our schools has been restored, and we will be resuming tomorrow. Wait, tomorrow? What the fuck? Tomorrow? Yeah, we literally started right away. They wasted no time trying to get us back in there. And there was really, it wasn't so bad because you'd think, oh, we're just going to hop straight into it. At least in my class, it was sort of a sharing experiences with Sandy for the first week, because that week only amounted to 3 days, because that was when we started. That was when school started. It started on Wednesday. Monday was the last day without power. Tuesday in the morning, we got the power back, and I was able to relax. And Wednesday was when we started school. And Thursday and Friday were just more babbling on about Sandy, and we were just kicking back for a little. And then the Monday after was when we were starting to get back into the swing of things. Now, some lessons, they had to be pushed forward a little bit. Like, they had to be forced on us a little more, because we had lost 9 days, and that's more than the school wants us to. So we were worried that school was going to be pushed into possibly July, or at least very late into June. But that didn't happen, because they had actually put out a memo saying, hey, for your lessons, for just about any grade, we're going to be doing, these lessons are going to be pushed from this day into this day, these lessons from this day into this day, these lessons from this day into this day, and by April, we should have made up for the 9 days that we lost. Yeah, by April. I know. So, because we'd lost fucking 2 weeks. Because they had actually closed school the day before the hurricane hit. I don't know if I mentioned that, but it wasn't like we went to school the day the hurricane hit. We didn't have school that day, and they had actually forced a early dismissal the day before that. The day before the hurricane hit, 2 days before. That was the day my mom came home from her little gas trip. So we had been off school for quite a while. So it was actually a little more than 9 days that we had lost. I think it might have been, yeah, it was 10 and a half days. 10 and a half days. So they were able to make that up in due time, and we were able to get back on track with really no problem at all. So the damages were clean. We got our power back. Life is starting to come back to normal. And it looks like that's about the end of the story. Because, for me at least, for the most part, it is. Life was pretty much normal past that point. So, looking back on Hurricane Sandy after 9 years, after learning all this stuff, after remembering it too, after just seeing what hurricanes do, seeing what it did to our town, seeing what it did to other parts of Jersey, because I wasn't aware of it at that time, I've got to say, it's really one for the history books. At least it is for me, because one, it was the first major hurricane I ever had to go through. So far, it's the only one. I know there was Hurricane Isaias last year, well, Tropical Storm Isaias. Just a lot of rain, just a lot of wind. And then Hurricane Henry, totally fucking useless. Hurricane Irene, totally fucking useless. But looking back on it, it was an experience. It certainly was an experience. One that I certainly will never forget. Living off candles and boiling water to stay warm. Doing puzzles to be distracted and just driving around to try and kill time. I remember my mother also did give me a couple history lessons about town while we were just trying to pass time, because I was like, you know, we have all this time to just do nothing, because at that point she was actually off from work too. She had to stay home too because there was some damage to the place she had worked and they were trying to repair that. And so she got off scot-free too for a little while. She actually had to return to work a day before I had to go to school. But for the most part, she did trust me to stay with my grandfather for one day. But at that point, that was actually where the idea for summer camp boiled up in her head. And I'll tell those stories one day. But for now, life is finally back to normal. And we can relax for a little. over the coming months and over the coming years, people did get their houses fixed. They got all that damaged shit torn out of there. They got rid of all their screwed up cars because a lot of cars were lost during the storm just because of how much water they took on. Especially the car that we gave them because, like I said, it was under 3 feet of water for a pretty long time. But looking back on it now, yeah, certainly a wild ride. One that I'll never forget. And I'm happy to have shared that with you guys. So, thanks for watching my Hurricane Sandy retrospective series, Storytime with Nick.